Hello everybody! I'm so happy that you're back. I'm so excited to bring you down this little rabbit hole that we found. This is a huge part of our evolution, and the reason being is that we're going to be able to show you how you can use this information for your own financial gain. Now, the most important thing you have to understand at this point is that on every one of those contracts they have you signing, and we're talking about the bank today, right? You're going to see it's in all capital letters of your name. And by this time, you need to understand that as fact, that is not you, that is a company named your name, opened up on your birth date, and it has a share of Canada in it, and it has money in there for you. So if you don't know that at this point, I strongly recommend that you click this link up here. It's going to take you to the series where it's going to have all that information for you, and then you can come back. With that said, let's take a look at this recap. All the banks are securitizing your debt and selling it to the world market. Now, with that said, what does that mean? I'll tell you what that means. It means that we're this much closer of obtaining our bond through the bank. Now, you see, if they're selling the debt, they're no longer considered an affected party. They sold their interest in the debt. So therefore, if the bank sold your debt, they're no longer an affected party and they cannot sue you for the money. So if you ask for the proper documentation, which is proof of ownership of the debt, the wet ink copy that you signed of the contract, accompanied by a sworn affidavit by a chartered accountant, you'll see that 99% of the time, the banks cannot prove that they are still the rightful owners of the debt. Even in the Canadian rules of court, it states very clearly, if you are not an affected party, you cannot bring an action to anyone. So therefore, if the bank sold your debt, they're no longer an affected party and they cannot sue you for the money. Okay guys, so as we said there, it is very important to be asking the bank for proof of ownership of the debt. If they took your contract, your debt, and sold it to the world market, they are no longer an affected party. Okay, well, don't take my word for it. Here is John Yanchu. He is a lawyer. He appeared on Fox News. Let's ask him a question here. Hey, John, do you think it's a good idea for people to be asking the bank for proof of ownership of the debt?
Everybody should put the lender to the task of establishing that it owns the debt that it claims that you owe to it. Lending institution, which originated the debt, may no longer be the owner. It may have transferred it to another institution, which in turn may have transferred it to another lending institution, and so on and so forth.
Okay, John, but how realistic is this really? Do you think judges would be receptive to this?
Oh, absolutely. I've tried it many times. I've done it for many years. Judges expect lawyers and parties who come before them to adhere to the letter of the law.
Okay, well, thanks, John. Okay, guys, so you've heard it from a lawyer that appeared on Fox News. Now let's go take a look at the actual documentation we're asking for. Now, what it is the wet ink signed contract of your debt. The contract that you signed, that is actually an asset. Now, keep in mind, accompanied with that is a sworn affidavit from a chartered accountant stating that he's looked into the ledgers, and the ledgers do show that they are still the owner of the debt or they're not the owner of the debt. Now, as you can see, the documentation we're asking for is a very reasonable request. The original wet ink copy of the contract, the actual asset that was made the day that you signed the contract, well, the bank should have that. And then also a sworn affidavit from an accountant. Well, the banks have a whole lot of accountants working for them, so that should not be a problem either. Okay guys, a great example of why you'd want to ask for proof of ownership of the debt is when you use a car transaction, for example. So if you're buying a car from me and you like the car And I said, okay, it's time to give me the money. And you said, okay, Kev, well, can I see proof of ownership of the vehicle? And I said, well, I don't have that right now, but give me the money anyways. Would you give me the money? And of course, the answer is absolutely not. Now, the same premise holds true with a debt. A debt is an asset, just like a car that can be sold. So if your lender cannot prove to you they own the asset, the debt, then you should not be paying them anything. And legally and lawfully, you don't owe them money if they cannot prove they own the debt. Okay, here's a great example of how the bank cannot sue you once they sell the debt because they're no longer an affected party. Here's a great example. If you had a car and you sold the car, and about 3 weeks later you found out that the car got vandalized, can you sue the entity who vandalized it? Absolutely not. Therefore, if the bank sold the debt, they cannot sue you any longer because they sold their interest in the debt. So, who you believe is your creditors are most likely not. All they're doing is servicing the debt. So if you're sending your payments in for, let's say, the last 3 years, well, they could have sold the debt 2 days after you signed the original loan contract, and all they've been doing is servicing the debt. That means they can give you information on the account, send you out statements, answer any questions, collect payments. That's servicing the debt. But are they still the owner of the debt? Absolutely not. Now, when we're referring to the bank selling the debt, we're not talking about the bank selling the debt to a collector after it's gone delinquent. We're talking about like 4 days later, after you've signed the original contract, they could have securitized the debt, they could have sold it. Now, here's a great example on how the banks can get paid twice and how important it is to ask for proof of ownership of the debt. Let's say you went and signed a loan agreement at the bank for $20,000. Now, let's say that the bank sells the debt 4 days later. That means they got paid money. Now, let's say you win the lottery or receive an inheritance or a large commission check 3 months later, and you decide to come in and pay your loan off in full. If you just pay the bank with their hand open like that, if you just pay the bank and they take the money now, the bank just got paid twice. And this is happening more often than you can believe. Now, just so you know, the banks make money on your loans. Here's an example. Let's say you have a $20,000 loan or credit card debt that's at 19% compound interest. Well, there's a lot of those around. Now, if they take that debt and they sell it to the world market, the reason the world market is paying more than the $20,000 is because the debt over the 5 years is going to be worth $64,000. So you see, the bank could take that contract you signed, sell it for an extra $15,000, and the world market, who they're selling it to, they're quite happy with that because they just bought a cash flow over 5 years that will be worth $64,000. Okay guys, so if you find yourself in the situation where you feel that you need debt help, this information is priceless. But of course, to be able to execute it is another thing. So what we are willing to do here is we're willing to help you guys out. So all you need to do is send an email to UnitedWeStandPeople@gmail.com. Just let us know you need debt help, and we're going to do everything we can to execute all of these techniques we have. Now, keep in mind, we are not bank trustees. We do not do consumer proposals. We're none of that. We are human rights activists who are going to help Canadians get out of debt by asking for proof of ownership of the debt. Now, we've got some young whippersnappers down in the ad department They told me today that they got an ad that's definitely not going to get us mixed up with any bankruptcy trustees or consumer proposal people. Let's take a look at it. I'm pretty excited to see it myself.
Oh my God! Do you feel like this regarding your debt situation? Oh! We can help!
UnitedWeStandPeople.com. The power's in the people.
Alrighty then. And that's definitely not going to get us mixed up with any bank trustees advertisements, that's for sure. Anyways, with that said, guys, how does all of this relate to you getting access to your bond? Well, think about it. The bank is actually not lending you money. They're just going to your bond and taking the money out and misrepresenting the whole transaction. So that means that with us asking the proper documentation, we can actually get into our bond due to the fact they cannot prove they are still the rightful owner of the debt. Therefore, they cannot sue. They're no longer an affected party and they sold their interest in the debt. Okay guys, so I'd like to leave you with this. You're not going to want to miss our next episode. Up to this point, we've shown you that you are a chief executive officer of a company named your name listed on the world market. Now, what we'd like to do now is to show you how to act as a chief executive officer by showing you on what questions to ask and also how to handle bank employees, bank collectors, bank lawyers. Yes, we're going to show you this through an investigative reporter's approach. So we're going to actually bring you along on our UnitedWeStandPeople.com public investigations. So don't miss the next episode. Okay, I'm going to say bye now and have a great day. And we'd like to leave you with this little reminder. Have a great day.
Oh my God! Do you feel like this regarding your debt situation? Oh! We can help!
UnitedWeStandPeople.com. The power's in the people.
So don't forget to like this video and share with your friends and subscribe.